Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. We begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resource and friendship of Indigenous people. So welcome to this hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of St. Catharines. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. There are two major types of applications at this committee. One, applications for consent and severance, and the second are applications for minor variances to municipal zoning bylaws, and each of these two are contained within the files this evening. Evidence may be given under oath if deemed necessary. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. Additionally, please maintain respect while communicating with the committee, staff, and other meeting participants to ensure a smooth and orderly discussion. Courteous and orderly discussion, that'd be copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant and any other person who appeared before the committee or filed a written request to receive a notice of decision. We're also being broadcast on YouTube this evening for those who can't be here. Pursuant to the More Homes Built Faster Act and in the matter of consent applications, the applicant, the minister, or a specified person or public body that has an interest in the matter has a right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of the consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the mailing of the decision. Minor variance decisions may also be appealed. However, that must be made within 20 days of the making of the decision, and the cost of an appeal is $400. Are there any amendments to or additions to the agenda?
There's just two planning reports that were added on Monday and circulated.
Great, thanks so much. May we have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening's hearing? You, David. And there are two minutes from the two previous meetings, and I'd like to have someone move to adopt the minutes. Thank you, Tom. Does any member of this panel have a conflict of interest in any of the applications being to be considered at this hearing or the previous hearing if they were not in attendance? No, neither do I. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment? Ewing.
There is one request for an extension of deferral for 72 Vine Street South, and Mr. Tubman is here.
72 Vine Street South, come on down. Make yourself comfortable right down here, please. And we'll just get your confirmation that that is in fact what you want.
Yep. Yes.
Any questions or clarifications from the members of the committee? Motion, please, to grant this application deferral.
Can I ask a question first? How long do we want it to be, the deferral to be extended?
How many yips for deferral?
Elaine, do we know how long they're going to take to review the documents we've submitted?
I'm not sure, but I would say give yourself 3 months and we'll follow up, or they can come back earlier.
Okay, let's go with that.
All right, we talked them into 3 months.
Move that application B5822 SC be deferred for 3 months.
All those in support of the motion? Great, see you in 3 months or sooner.
Or sooner. Perfect. Thanks, guys.
That should bring us to remaining applications to be heard this evening, and they are 4, starting with 60 Tulip Tree Common. Oh no, come on. So this is application A 6024 for 60 Tulip Tree Common. This is for an existing sunroom on the back of a property, and that existing sunroom is in contradiction with the minimum rear yard setback to the dwelling of 6 meters. The proposed variance is for 2.4 meters. Staff technical report has been provided to the applicant, in which the staff ultimately are recommending for approval. So with that understanding of the scope of the application, is there anything that the applicant who will state their name and address wishes to add?
Sure. So my name is Mudassar Ahmed. I'm the agent representing 62 Liptree Common. Just so you're aware, the owner is here, Mr. John Mitterer, if needed. I don't really have any comments to make. I just had, I wanted to confirm the conditions if approved, and I'd like to discuss the fees if possible.
Okay, so I don't see, there's sometimes the technical report will include specifically the body of the report may recommend a number of things, but here I just see a straight approval without any specific conditions for approval being listed. So there are no, other than their approval to grant you the variance you're requesting, there are no conditions.
So I'm reviewing this is from,
Unless you want to highlight things that aren't there.
I'm from Katie Lindy, Development Engineering Technologist, and she's referencing conditions here, including 62 Liptree Common, which requests a grading plan, site servicing and grading plan, sorry.
Well, we'll let the planning representative from the city comment on why we don't see that as a condition of the approval.
Through the chair to the agent, that is not a condition of minor variance application.
Okay.
That is a comment that at the building permit stage, site servicing and grading plan is going to be required.
So that's, okay, so I don't believe it is required. There's this,
Well, either way, it's not a requirement of this hearing,
okay.
whether or not the building permit
it's
provides it,
not-
deal with it then.
It's not
So,
a condition of this approval?
so I'm telling you, right now, there are no conditions associated with approval.
I'm happy with that.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Took you a hard time to convince you.
Sorry, I'll take that.
And you want to talk about the fee?
Yes. So unless there's any questions regarding the variance itself, I'd like to submit the NPCA letter itself, and I have a list of dates here that I'd like to review with you regarding the application. Originally, this building permit was applied for and issued in October 30th, 2019. Occupancy was issued November 30th, 2020. Possession was taken by the owners in November 30th, 2020. They had their enclosure, which is the subject of this variance, installed on April 2021. Since then, all permanent inspections have been done and completed with no comment. In April 2023, 5 years after the homeowners had lived there, 5 years after the permit had been issued, an inspection was conducted on the property, and the owners were advised that a variance would need to be applied for.
I'm going to suggest that the building permit for which the building construction was under would have been completed and reviewed. The addition of the sun porch after the fact appears to be without a building permit, and therefore, through possibly a complaint, was notified to the planning department that there might be a violation, which was then confirmed, which is why you're here.
So the house, the enclosure and the deck and all was part of the original construction. Inspection.
But not the enclosed sunscreen
The sunscreen was installed.
or
while
sun porch?
The enclosure was installed and inspections completed after the fact. The occupancy permit was issued to the owner, and 3 years after an occupancy permit was issued, the city came back and asked for a minor variance.
Well, I'd like to get these, if planning staff can comment on whether or not they are aware that the existing sunroom, which in my understanding, well, if it was part of the original scope of the building permit application, or is this something that was seen as requiring its own review, and why, if that was or was not the case, why was there this delay?
And that's also, just so you're aware, the NPCA letter also references the work permit, which they note includes the same information.
Okay, we'll see if there's a comment.
So NPCA permits and fees are not being subject or regulated by the city. So NPCA fees are under separate regulation, and we do not govern those fees. In terms of the building permit with the city, I have a note from the building department that says that the building permit needs to be completed and all inspections are to be completed to the satisfaction of the chief building official. So
So I
in
don't
the record-
disagree. I don't disagree that that's what the building permit provided, but they provided that 3 years after they had already issued occupancy to the owners. The owners were living there for 3 years, and
So
then.
you're speaking through me,
Sorry,
not directly. So just, my understanding would be that I mean, this is not on the ground, it's on the deck.
Yes,
So
yeah, like-
I'm not sure if the city considers that to be an accessory structure and therefore would not be part of the original building permit. Is there any clarification on that?
So once a platform structure is being enclosed, it's no longer a platform structure, it becomes a part of the building, and a building permit is required for that enclosure.
Okay, so this supports what I'm suspecting is that originally, the original plans for the building with the deck, platform structure, as it's being referred to,
yes.
probably did not highlight the fact there's going to be an enclosed sun room on it. And I'm guessing, which is often the case, the enclosed sunroom came on after the owner inhabited the building, and this is considered to be something that would have to have had a building permit, separate building permit applied for the sunroom specifically, and that became highlighted to staff by a complaint or some other reason, or the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority having looked at the site. So these are two separate things. So I don't think that the timeline has anything to do with it. And even if it did, it's still in violation. And if it wasn't caught then, it doesn't mean that the owner gets to get away with a violation. It means it's being dealt with now. So which fees are you referring to specifically?
So
The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority
No.
fees or the fees for this hearing?
So the Conservation Authority has agreed to waive their fees, given that the information being provided today is the same as what was originally submitted in 2020. So they have waived their fees. The fees I'm discussing right now are the city's $3,200 minor variance application fee.
$3,200.
It's
Yeah,
not an
or
around
whatever.
number, but whatever, that fee is.
I thought I
what-
heard 33,000. Well, you're getting ripped
No,
off.
no, no.
Okay,
Yeah, 3,200, yeah. So that's the fee that I'm
All right,
looking to
yep.
waive or reduce, given the information is the same that was originally submitted in 2020.
Okay.
Occupancy was issued in 2020, and 3 years later is when the owners were notified that
Okay.
their deck, their enclosure was.
Well, I made
non-compliant.
a few guesses here. I'm just going to go back to planning staff, and then we'll go to the committee. Just so, I'm speculating, and perhaps you know, that this sun room probably was not part of something being built on top of the platform structure at the time the building permits were submitted for the building. I'm speculating that it came afterward, and that's why we're here today. And if planning has any information to confirm that, that would help with the applicant's position.
I don't know the exact timing of the items you're speaking about, but that I just want to sort of further expand on what Dasha was saying about the comments we've received from the building department indicate that a building permit is required for the enclosure of the deck, meaning that from the comments I'm seeing, that would not have been included on the original building permit, that there is a building a permit that has yet to be completed and all inspections to be completed for a roof over the deck, and that there still need to be inspections requested, scheduled, and approved by the inspector for the house itself. Some of these inspections have to be requested by the owner, so I would take a look at those comments and follow up with the building department about what is outstanding there.
Okay, so any questions from the committee?
So there's a little darkness here, or ambiguity. We have an application regarding a sunroom. I'm also hearing roof over the deck, but we're here for the sunroom, correct? Thank you. So you're saying that the sunroom was in place when the building permit was issued? Do we know that?
The sunroom was in place when occupancy was issued. We had an original permit with the deck. We revised the permit and made an amendment submission. This was during COVID, so I acknowledge there was not everybody was in the office, and it was a different time of how people worked. But we made a submission at that time. The permanent inspections continued. Occupancy was issued with this enclosure in place. Nobody said about sunroom. whatever we want to call it. Yes, the Aztecs sunroom. The sunroom was installed when occupancy was issued. 3 years passed by with this sunroom in place and the owners enjoying the sunroom, after which the city came back and said, now you need a minor variance. So this is why I'm asking, I understand a building permit is required. I have no objection to apply for a building permit and satisfy those conditions. I'm saying that the minor variance fee is inappropriate because they applied for these same requests back 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So that's my issue. At time of occupancy, if the inspector had said, this is not on the permit, you need a minor variance, absolutely we would have dealt with it at the time. The house was closed, occupancy was issued, the owners moved in. 3 years later, I think that's inappropriate for the city to say, you need to pay $3,000 to submit the exact same
Okay,
information you submitted.
your position is clear, thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
follow-up question?
So you're stating that the covering of the deck is where the permit was required, not the sunroom?
No, so the covering, the roof structure on the deck, which was part of the house, was part of the original permit. Inspections did not get completed at the time, so that's why that condition is here. The sunroom enclosure was in place at the time of occupancy.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, through you to someone, the circulation package, just for clarity, mentions that original variance was obtained in 2018 for a 3-meter setback. And then this is for 2.41. Is that really what we're here for? The enclosure made that closer to the lot line?
Two, well,
The
two.
enclosure did not
Two
move.
staff.
Sorry.
So that setback was approved for a platform structure, not for the enclosed sunroom that is part of the building. That's why we are here for a different setback, because there's different setbacks for the dwelling and different setbacks for the platform structures. So that setback is no longer applicable.
So, in summary, you can turn your mic off. In summary, what I'm gathering is that, in my experience, building permit application for what is shown on the drawings, regardless of a rear shed or a sunroom addition, it was not probably on the building permit drawings as it was sent into the city. I'm sure it may have been added before this permit was closed, but the reality is the permit's not even closed because there's still outstanding inspections. So there's an open permit on this property regardless of the occupant being allowed to occupy it. So this has not been closed, so I don't see there's any time delay really, but as we know, there have been applications coming to us that have been 10 years old that only come to light when the applicant is involved in a permit process and there's a deficiency discovered that's 10 years old, and they still have to, they're still not absolved from not meeting the requirements of the zoning bylaw. So I'm sharing that observation with you. At this point, I'd like to ask if there's anybody, and the owner could be anybody, in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application. But you have to come all the way down here and sit at the top of the horseshoe, or rainbow, if you will. Well, you're together, so it doesn't matter, but sure, get up there. That's where you belong. Yeah. And you'll turn your microphone on and give us your name and address, but I think we already know. Bottom right, little talky person thing.
My name is John Mitterer, Mitterer. I live at 60 Tulip Tree Common. We informed the builder even before we put a down payment on the property that we were planning to install a sunroom, and they didn't even have a deck approved. So they very kindly moved to modify the plan for our property to include a deck, and they knew that this room was going to be enclosed. It was completed after we moved in. I don't know where it sits in terms of the timeline that Mudassar laid out for us, but All I want to say is that had we known that there was an outstanding permit, we would probably not have enclosed the property. And it has caused us no end of trouble that it came up. I'm not making a plea here, I don't think. But I just want to note that it's a source of irritation that we had a very irritating inspector by our place so long after we were in the business of getting on with our lives. If the city is not responsible for the delay and therefore the extra cost I'm forced to incur now, then somebody has to be responsible. And my next candidate is the builder, but I think the builder has been unfairly treated here as well. So all I want to confirm is that I can walk out of here and I can appeal that part of the ruling.
Depending on the ruling we make, which hasn't been made yet, if the committee, well, it's kind of weird. This committee could approve the application, which is before you, and then you would be done until 20 days, the 20-day appeal period, and you've already paid your fee, and 20 days from now, the city will send you a letter saying no one has appealed, presumably, and you get to get on your life at that point. So you're here asking for an approval, and it's possible you're going to get it. But what you're suggesting is you might still be unhappy with that because you've had to pay for the privilege of this possible approval, and can you appeal it? So you'd be appealing your own successful application. I don't know how that would play out, but if it's worth $3,200 for you to be done with this in 20 days after today, you're on the verge of that. If that money should be recouped from somebody who didn't properly show this sunroom on the plans, like your builder, that's something you can do privately. But right now, we have an application that you've, on behalf of you, asking for this minor variance, and the success, depending on the, you might actually get that, but then you're asking about appealing it. So typically you would appeal if you didn't get what you wanted.
Yeah, are those not conceptually totally separate issues? Thank you. So can I try to appeal? Is tonight the last chance I have to appeal? The cost?
The fee?
Yeah.
Okay, the fee. Yes, I would say this is your last chance.
Oh.
But there is the Ontario Land Tribunal. Do they deal with fees? Or they deal with the decision?
I think they typically deal with the decision. I've never had that,
Yeah.
but I'd have to follow up on that.
You'd
I'm
be
not quite
charting your
sure.
territory as far as we know.
I'd have to follow up. I've never had that.
So here's where we are. We know that there is a request for us to consider waiving the fee, and we know there's an application before us to consider approving the minor variance. So let us do let's see what happens, and then you have recourse that Elaine can help you out with after the fact if you want to appeal one of those things. If we deny it, if we deny your application, you can appeal that, and if we deny your refund, maybe you can appeal that. We don't know. It's not. So we're poised to make a motion here.
Thank you for hearing me out.
Okay,
Appreciate
great.
it.
So you can hang out there if you want, or you can return back to the gallery. But right now, if there's anybody else in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application, no. Any closing comments that are different from what we already know? Yes, David.
The agent made some reference to somebody else waiving their fee, I thought. Is that correct?
All right, thanks. At this time, I think we are more than able to put a motion on the table. Tom, are you going to do that?
I'll deal with the application itself. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A6024, as presented in the notice of hearing, be approved as the variance is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? So that motion is carried, one opposed. So you now have your minor variance that recognizes the existing sunroom in its existing location. So that's supposed to be a win. With respect to the refunded fee, anybody want to propose a motion on refunding the fee? Tom, it would be obviously, that'd be something you would do.
I just wanted to follow up on the comment. Is there other, through you to staff, have there been other either reductions or fees waived?
This committee has, it's in our purview to do that. It can be half, 10%, completely waived. It's totally up to us. Yes, we've done it in the past.
For this particular, as the applicant suggested.
Well, if this is their only minor variance that they've ever had.
Not for 62 or 3 Common.
So I'm not sure how we don't usually use precedent in our discussion, but now we know that there's some precedent. Carrie?
In terms of, and I will go back to what you said in terms of precedent, but notwithstanding that, I think you're possibly commingling the NPCA fees and the minor variance fees. Because my recollection, though it may be subject to lack of memory every once in a while, but I do not ever remember in this forum, being the Committee of Adjustment, waiving any fees as they relate to Tulip Common in our forum. As to whether they were done somewhere else, okay, but you're representing that.
You're absolutely correct. So when I approached the planning department about this, I'm here presenting the case to the PF committee.
Okay, I'm just gonna,
And I'm not going to belabor this, but you're representing that other residents along that Tulip Common had fees rebated or waived as they relate to a sunroom?
As they relate to a minor variance application for a deck that we built, the homeowner lived in and occupied, and the municipality came back after the fact, multiple years to say.
But we're dealing with a sunroom.
okay, that's good. I think we have established the clarity. So anyway, with respect to this minor variance to recognize a sunroom, not a platform structure, anyway, we've already granted the, so they've got the minor variance. Do they have to pay for it or not? Tom, do you wish to continue, or would someone else do this?
Sure. I move that the application fees for minor variance A6024 be waived.
Okay, the motion is to waive the fees. All those in favor? Those opposed? You've paid for it. You've paid for an approved application, so you're waiving the fees is denied. This is supposed to be a win. Think if half of it's a win anyhow.
I appreciate everything. Thanks. Thank you.
Enjoy. Thanks. Okay, so that's how we do it here at the Committee of Adjustment. So we're going to do it again at 38 Almond Street. So 38 Almond Street, there's a 4 variances. What do I have here? There we go. 4 variances are requested to accommodate a proposed accessory structure with a garage on the first floor of an accessory dwelling and an accessory dwelling unit on the second floor. Staff technical report that we have received and reviewed, the applicant also would have received and reviewed, notes that variances 1 through 3 be approved. For variance number 4, the staff recommends a tweaking to it, and that it be approved as follows: to permit openings at a height above 4.5 meters on the facade facing a rear lot line and within required yards of the principal building. With that understanding, does the applicant, whose name you will receive and where they live, have anything they wish to add to the application?
Good evening, committee members. It's just, what I wanted to add was the 4th recommendation for minor variance of the openings above 4.5 meters. If you look at the ADU that is on top of the double-car garage, that's the only 2 openings there are that line up with those dormers. And one of the openings is in the bedroom, and the other would be in the living room. To tweak it, I mean, that whole area is gonna look different.
So the intent of that is to, so your drawing has the 4.5 meters on it to illustrate the fact that this this proposed adjustment to variance number 4 raises the sill of the windows to roughly where the mid-height sash is now, or the eave of the building. And and obviously that would change the look of the elevation you have drawn currently, but it still provides the windows. So do you understand the reasoning for this revision?
Do I understand it? Not totally, to be
Well,
quite
this is what
honest.
we're gonna make sure we all understand. So we're gonna ask the planning representative to comment on the reasoning behind this, please.
Through the chair to the applicant, the original wording of the variance stated that to permit openings at a height above 4.5, but it did not state as to where those openings can be located. So the variance is still the same. It's only mentioned that it can be along rear lot line where the openings are located. So the south elevation is the rear lot line. So this variance permits openings along the rear lot line, which is the south elevation. So you are permitted to have the openings that are shown on this elevation.
So, but basically they're trying to prevent overlook at the rear of your proposed building into the rear of your neighbor, which it's close to. So your drawing as presented now with the dormers over the garage.
To clarify, this variance only speaks to the rear lot line so that there's no overlook to the east and west.
I think that's what I'm saying. So right now I'm seeing, I don't know where east and west is, I don't have a plan, but the garage doors are clearly facing north.
They're facing the laneway. There's a laneway
Oh, the laneway,
behind.
right.
I don't have any rear neighbors. I have a laneway, which, that's why this property is unique, and I came up, and same with the designer, came up with that design. I don't have any rear neighbors to bother. I do have a neighbor to the, if you're facing the laneway, there's a neighbor to the left of me, but there's no windows on the left side elevation or right side. It's just on the face of the building, which I don't have any neighbors backing onto.
Okay, so I was half right. I was right in the fact that the variance is meant to limit the opening of the window so it's kind of chest height and up, facing that direction. But if you were to put them, and it only talks about that elevation face. If the dormers were facing your house, for example, they could be the full, they wouldn't have to apply to that. Oh, I was so close, but I was wrong again.
Through the chair. I'm not 100% sure about that. I don't have the zone check considering them facing the house. This is a sort of new provision, so I'm afraid I can't speak about the hypothetical, but the reason that condition was put there was simply for clarification. It was considering the plans in front of us, permitting the plans in front of us, and it was simply to be particularly clear that windows would not be allowed at this height on the other sides of the building. But as proposed, it is accommodating those. So it's just a
Understandable.
clarification. It's not a change to what you've asked for. It's just a clarification.
Okay.
To permit openings at a height above. Okay. I think I understand. Do you understand?
Understand now.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any questions from the members of the committee? Anybody in the gallery wishes to speak to this application? And would the committee members, a committee member like to read a motion, please?
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance A5024, 1 through 3 be approved as in the application, and variance 4 be approved as contained within the technical report, highlighting the fact that we are talking about the rear lot line. Does that work for you?
Sure, as written, as amended by
Could it-
staff in the report.
Yeah, there's.
All those in favor of the motion? Okay, your application's been approved unanimously.
Thank you, committee.
You're welcome.
Our next application is for 137 Westchester Crescent. This application involves severance as well as associated minor variances. The application proposes to sever a piece of property to permit a detached building with 2 interior ADUs and the remaining parcel to retain the existing dwelling with 2 interior ADUs. The staff report includes 14 conditions associated with the severance. And with respect to the minor variances, staff are recommending approval of A5424 and that variance 1 of A5524 be withdrawn, the remainder to be approved. Would the applicant and/or agent please state their name and address and contribute anything more they wish to add?
Hi, everybody. My name's Stefano Di Pietro. I'm representing and owner of 137 Westchester Crescent, and no, I don't have anything to add.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the members of the committee? Anybody out there in the gallery wishes to speak to this application for, where are we, 137 Westchester Crescent? Nope, great, thanks. We can move right into a motion, please. David, wrestling it away from Tom.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent application B1524 SC and variance applications A5424 and variance 2 of A5524, with variance 1 being withdrawn, be approved as the consent is desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, has no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, has regard for the provisions of Section 5124 of the Planning Act, conforms with the policies of the city's official plan, and with conditions fulfilled will also comply with the zoning bylaw, maintains the intent and purpose of the provincial planning statement and does not conflict with any applicable provincial plans, The variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping
With?
with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Great, thank you. Tom, any clarification, discussion?
Was the conditions fulfilled portion robust enough as a motion, or do we need to add the subject to the conditions in the technical report for the consent?
Yeah, it should have been.
Dave accepts the friendly amendment. All right, all those in favor of the motion? Great, your application's been approved unanimously, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Greg, have 2 minutes?
We're going to take a 2-minute biology break. Or is it anatomy break now? So our final application for this evening takes us to 114 Hartzell Road. And at 114 Hartzell Road, there is an existing non-residential building, including assembly and office uses. There are some minor variances required for this property. Is the representative of 114 Hartzell Road here? Don't be shy, come on down. There are 4 minor variances. Variances 1 and 4 in the technical report are recommended, 1 and 4, not 2, 4, are recommended for approval. Variance 2 is suggested in the report to be withdrawn. And variance 3 is subject to conditions 1 and 2 in the report, and they are 1 being that a minimum of 22% of the front yard be maintained as soft landscaping, and the second one is that a minimum of 8 short-term bicycle parking spaces be provided on site. So with that, and this is to facilitate, the variances are required to facilitate this proposal as outlined. So are there any additional comments that the applicant and/or agent wishes to make after giving us your name and address?
Yes, please. I'm John Redicott from ACK Architect Studio. I'm here on behalf of the owner, Wes Keller, And if you don't mind, I might just give a little
This is your
addition
time
what
to
you said.
shine.
Yeah. So in addition to the supportive report that we received from planning and the commenting agencies, just to bring everyone up to speed, the reason for these minor variances, if you're familiar with the site, this is the former Audi dealership. And Wes is looking to bring his business to St. Catharines, which is like a photo studio business, and he has his offices to occupy the space. We went to the building department for a permit for change of use of the space because it was a former auto dealership. And the committee is now being presented with these minor variances based on existing conditions. So as you can see, it's the existing setbacks to the buildings, existing parking conditions that we're dealing with. And it might be worthy to mention that in 2004, this site had a clean bill of health from a zoning perspective, but since then the zoning bylaw has changed, and we're here to just work with the committee and the planning department on making everything compliant.
Excellent, fantastic background, thanks so much. Any questions or comments from the committee members to anybody about anything? Nope. Yes?
I remember a reference in the report to a grading plan through you to planning. And does a change of use trigger a grading plan requirement?
Through the chair, that was from comments from circulated departments that at the building permit stage, they would need a grading plan. If that ends up not being the case, then that would be handled at the building permit stage.
So,
And secondly, in terms of change of use, perhaps you could be, you could comment in more detail what denotes a change of use, because my perception was it was commercial, it is now commercial. So how does the change of use happen? When you go from a French fry store to a donut shop, is that considered to be a change of use?
Through the chair, in this case, it's going from an auto dealership, which in our current bylaw may actually be a use on its own, although I'm not 100% certain, but it was established under previous zoning, and it's going to an office and assembly use, which is considered entirely a different use for the property. So we've looked at what zoning applies to that new use, and that is what these variances are based on. The building may exist, but as it's related to the use inside, these are the variances they will need in order to establish it.
Notwithstanding the fact that they are both commercial uses.
different occupancies, though.
Through the chair, we don't consider, I don't know that we consider either of them commercial uses. There's an automobile dealership use under a previous bylaw, and then currently they're proposing office and assembly space, neither of which is denoted as commercial.
Thank you.
So my big question is there anybody who wishes to speak to this application who remains in the audience, in the gallery, since this is our last application? Why are you all here? Anyway, would you wish to speak to the application? Okay. So come on down, have a seat, turn on your mic. So you can speak for or against, and you'll be focused on the 4 minor variances that are being asked. And the understanding is that, I'll just get clarification here, there is no planned modification to the envelope and appearance of the existing building. There's no addition. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the building that you see today, as a result of what may happen here, will look the same.
My name is Bruce Cox, and I live at 3 Dunvegan, across the street. Questions about the intent of the variance right now. One of the members here that came down today is from 4 Dunvegan, and this green space would be against her property on that side. The business, we're not even sure what kind of business this is. Am I close enough? Sorry. Because we have, is it a licensed bar? Do they have a liquor license? Do they have a are they applying for it? Are these variances to comply with something for a liquor license?
I'm going to answer the questions as you ask them. So the variances respond to the physical relationship of the building to the property line.
Yeah.
So in this case, as we have, this is recognizing the existing building, and perhaps when it was built, the zoning bylaws permitted, whatever the case may be, the current zoning bylaws being applied to this change of use application, which is
Yeah.
what's going on inside, require these minor variances. So in a way, it's an administrative compliance being made, since nothing physically is changing with the building. So it has to do with recognizing the existing infractions.
I understand the building is what it is, okay? My question is,
I heard you say you're curious to know what's going on inside the building.
what they're
Okay.
calling it and what's going on.
Okay, so
Okay.
from a zoning perspective, so zoning is, tries to ensure that there is compatible building uses adjacent to other building use. So there's residential
Yeah.
usage next to this property. So in terms, we'll ask the zoning, our planning friends here. So with respect to these 4 minor variances, there is no issue. The intended use of this building does not, it meets the zoning requirements in terms of allowable use, is that correct?
That's correct. The proposed use is a permitted use.
Okay, and specifically, perhaps the applicant could remind us again, I thought you said photo studio, but what the intended use is of the current owner?
Current ownership is called Black Frame Studios. So they have a studio where they do photo shoots and things like that. They have their offices, and they do have an event space for corporate events.
Okay, so it is primarily a photo studio, but more importantly, it does not conflict with the allowable uses for that property. So they're not here to ask for, I don't know, a factory to be installed, because that would probably wouldn't. So it's considered, the use is considered compatible with what was there now.
Perhaps I'm not clear. Because I live next to one Dunvegan, which is their parking lot, okay, which was sold to Audi back in the day when the land was split up there, when after the bank left and different guys. The reason we're asking is because they've thrown events there, okay? And whether they're corporate events or not, there's part of this thing is going to reduce parking in their lot, which they don't use now behind the building, adjacent to number 4. They brought in catering trucks, blocked all that off, and the interior, whatever's going on inside spills outside, all right? We've had a lot to deal with in that area between everything else, and also the fact that 7-Eleven now is carrying alcohol and that. When they throw an event, they don't have enough parking for their own events. It goes down the street in no parking zones, everything else down both sides of the street, and extends down to the end where there's a schoolyard, Ferndale Public School, and they use the parking lot down there. The last event on November the 18th, whether it was a corporate event, I have no idea. The cars filled up. The people attending those events came out of their cars, put open bottles of liquor on the top of the cars, were serving booze off the hoods of their cars. Reports were called into the police, and they did come at some point. We had people out there, music, and I'm going to give you an example. I sit about 8 feet from my television. When my television's on in my house with my windows shut, doors shut, that I listen to the volume about 7 or 8. The last event, 15, 16, so I could hear the TV, my windows are vibrating off the house till 2 a.m. When the people come out, annihilated, in cars, leaving. The fact that we live on a school street, we all back into our driveways because we've all had very close calls with running children over that we can't see. When you're adding liquor, maybe a patio, I don't know, whatever it is, you're increasing the risk on my side, which is the north side of Dunvegan. There's 300 children come down that street at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay,
It's an increased traffic and everything else in and out.
So I understand your concern, but in the invisible lines that the planning department puts on the city, Hartsel Road is obviously a commercial corridor with, so if I could just have planning staff confirm how the zoning changes from this property that addresses Hartsel Road versus the properties immediately adjacent, which are probably in R something, and then if you could also comment on the kinds of uses which are allowed for this building within the zoning bylaw as it currently stands, please.
So the properties along Dunwood Road are residentially zoned.
And the current property that's here before us is zoned which?
Is zoned mixed use.
And within mixed use, what kinds of uses are listed in the zoning bylaw?
So mixed uses are permitted. Offices, place of assembly, which both are proposed uses and permitted, restaurant, retail store, recreational indoor facility.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So this is a case where we're right on an edge of a mixed-use zone and a residential zone, which is one of the reasons why there are landscape buffers between these two uses and that sort of thing, and interior and side yard setbacks. But with respect to the intended use of it being a restaurant, bar, assembly use, it's a permitted use. So the building owner, this is why we're not here to talk about a change, accommodating a non-conforming use. They are proposing a use which is allowed, which is permitted in the zoning bylaw. So when it comes to the behavior of the individuals who are leaving the property, or the noise that you're hearing at 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to listen to your TV or whatever time, you would unfortunately have to rely on the other zoning, bylaws, noise bylaws, and calling the police and that sort of thing to mitigate the behavior that's happening on that property. But with respect to the use, they're meeting the requirements of the zoning bylaw. So we're really here to talk about these 4 items, which are setbacks and buffers, and not the use, even though it might be, not disturbing to you, but it might impact the quality of your life. You would have to rely on the noise bylaw on that, for example. So if at 10 o'clock they're not supposed to be making noise, then you're supposed to, as a citizen, be able to call the correct authorities and have that dealt with. But it's not part of what we're looking at today.
Well, part of the thing, the elimination of the parking spaces when they don't have the accommodation to handle their events already is something that we question because of the volume of traffic.
So that is on point. So if you are here to say that, if they're supposed to have 18 parking spaces and that would make a difference, and they're in fact asking for 12, and that reduction in 6 parking spaces would improve your quality of life, and you could say, that's why I'm here to speak out against this. Or if you recognize the fact that 6 parking spaces that are being asked to be removed wouldn't make a difference because there's still going to be 20 people parking up and down the street, that could be another reality that that is applied to. It's not going to make a difference anyhow. Right now, I assume what we're learning is there are 12 spaces available. It's not taking away spaces.
Yes.
To the applicant?
Just as point of clarification, there's spaces being removed as a request by the CRCS department for landscaping.
For the buffer.
Not for the buffer, they're actually being removed along Hartzell because they like to see more landscaping in
Okay.
the front yard.
So there's a couple of things, there's a bit of a trade-off happening here where to improve the landscaping, this report is sort of saying that, you know, they're willing to accept, you know, a parking reduction. Is there anything else that the planning staff wish to clarify?
Through the chair, I would like to clarify that the removal of spaces at the front is actually to do with them not being functional. The landscaping is a separate addition also to address policies of the official plan encouraging increased landscaping where parking is reduced, but the actual number of spaces that can be counted towards the number of spaces on site at the front of the site is 2, and that is based on function alone, not because we need to add landscaping. It offers the opportunity for landscaping, but I just wanted to clarify that point.
Great, thank you. So as you can see in the site plan, there's the building, and there is the parking. Now, the city has a requirement. A parking stall has to be a certain width by a certain length and has to have certain aisleway width. So if a parking stall was 100 millimeters less than their minimum, they wouldn't recognize it as a parking stall, and it wouldn't be part of this count, just by way of letting you know what was proposed there by meeting the minimum requirements. So to summarize all of this, you're opposed to the application, it sounds like, for certain. It can't be because of the misbehaving patrons that come to this location, because there are other methods, because it's not what we're looking at here, but you are concerned about the reduction of parking spaces and the pressure that will put on the residential street adjacent to it. That would be a fair summary, okay? Are there any other issues you wish to address?
One concern that we do have in our thing is, if it's going to be a place where they're going to be serving food, catering food, and things like that, there's the problem of dumpsters and things like that, okay? There was a small food place there for a while. I can't remember what they did. They some kind of restaurant where they took menus from out of town or anywhere, and you could order them, and they would do it. They put their dumpsters at the back of One Dunvegan, okay? And very rarely were they taken care of. And I can tell you that anybody that came in tonight, we had a massive rat problem while those things are around. So our point on this thing is, what is the building? What is the intent of the building?
Right now, it's a photo and frame, proposed to be a photo and framing station, framing use with an opportunity for an assembly occupancy space to host corporate events. So I think that so photo and framing is understood. Corporate events does imply probably catered events for people to gather, probably to get hammered and drive home drunk. I don't know about all that, but it's going to be probably what you're familiar with. But with respect to your inconveniences, like for example, dumpsters, the location of a dumpster requires, and I think the city has zoning bylaws which talk about enclosures for dumpsters and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
So, 1 second.
I happen to see, on the site plan, I don't happen to see a particular designated location for garbage collection, which is oftentimes you might see. So I assume that if there were dumpsters, they'd have
It's
to meet.
intent for the garbage to be out of sight, somewhere in the corner where it does not affect neighboring lots. However, since this proposal is not going through the site plan application because this building is existing and they're not proposing any addition, we are not reviewing in such detail as to how it's going to be functioning versus if it was to go through the site plan application. However, it is on the owner to provide garbage enclosure and to make sure that the site is functioning and it does not disturb the neighbors.
So unfortunately, the answer is no. If you see something that you feel is affecting you negatively, and there's a zoning bylaw to protect you against that, you'd have to again make a complaint with the city, and they would say, come out and send a zoning bylaw compliance officer out and say, your place is trashy and messy and full of rats. This does not comply. That sort of thing. So again, the things that you're concerned about might impact you, do not directly relate to these 4 variances, except really for that parking concern that you have. So I think we've narrowed down what your concern is, and if you're satisfied, then we can move on with our hearing. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the committee who wishes to speak to this application? Okay, thank you. Carrie Lease, any comment? Oh, okay, thank you. So we have a committee member declaring a conflict of interest as a result of the participation of the last speaker. So, yes, David?
I just have a question to the planner with regard to office and assembly, I believe you call this area. Is an event space considered part of that?
So events place is being considered as assembly. We don't have events as a use itself. So it goes under the assembly use. It is permitted use.
Okay. Yes, Tom?
Just a question through you to staff about the parking. I'm not really sure I understand the short-term bicycle parking related to the use of what's proposed here. If this wasn't a change of use, what would the current parking requirements be? Is they're not changing the existing footprint of the parking lot in the building?
If it was the previous use, I'm not sure what the parking requirement will be because there's an equation that we use to calculate based on gross leasable floor area, how many parking spaces per 1,000 gross leasable floor area meters. So I'm not sure based on the previous use, but for this use, it's 18 parking spaces. The condition for the bicycle parking and landscaping relates to the parking variance reduction as we go through the policies to determine if a parking reduction can be supported and if it's appropriate. Some of the criteria is to see if bicycle facilities are going to be provided on the lot, if landscaping beyond the minimum is going to be provided. This lot does not require, this property or the use does not require to provide any parking, any bicycle parking, so they exceed that requirement, and they also exceed the landscaping requirement as well. So those conditions are a result of a reduction of parking spaces for planning staff to recommend approval.
So that they're trading off some amenities for the reduction in parking, the support of reduction in parking. Does the applicant, having heard the discussion, have anything more they wish to offer?
If it helps, it doesn't really count towards parking in the zoning bylaw, but the owner also has the property that Bruce was mentioning across the street that has many spaces available. So the reduction there, I think there's about 15 additional spaces in that lot too. So I don't know if that helps the community.
Thank you for your contribution. At this point, I think I'd like to, I think we're ready to have one of the 2 remaining members make a motion, please. You guys can fight it out.
I think I'll do a 2-parter just in case, since we're barely making quorum here. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A6124, variances 1 and 4, as outlined in the notice of hearing, be approved, at variance 2 be withdrawn, as recommended in the technical report, as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Somewhere in there is variance 3 relative to the conditions.
I'll do variance 3 separately.
So all those in favor of the motion with respect, okay, great. That part's been approved unanimously. Thank you.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance 3 of variance application A6124 be approved, subject to the conditions 1 and 2 outlined in the technical report, as the variance is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, all those in favor of that?
Correct, yeah. Variance 3 as amended in the technical report, subject to the 2 conditions.
Okay, all those in favor of that part of the motion? And those opposed? 2 in favor, 1 opposed. Your application, that has been approved, although not unanimously. That's it. Great, thank you.
Thank you, committee and staff.
So that brings to a close, I believe, our items on our agenda this evening. Thank you for all those who participated and observed. Any new business to be discussed?
Only that there's a vacant position for the Committee of Adjustment. Applications are online on the City of St. Catharines until November 22nd until 12 p.m.
So
if anyone's interested.
It's a little plug for all you people out there who might want to sit on the committee. There's a vacant seat down there. Do your civic duty. The date of the next meeting is December 11th, here at 5 p.m. on the 3rd floor of St. Catharines City Hall. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Tom. Meeting adjourned.